Hi guys, welcome back to my small engine repair channel. Today I'm going to show you how to fix a chainsaw with an oiling problem. And the oiling problem I'm talking about is that the chainsaw is not getting any oil to the bar and chain. The chainsaw I'll be doing this repair on today is a Husqvarna 562xp. I do get a lot of these specific chainsaws in for oiling problems. Now the saw will let you know that it's not getting oil to the bar and chain through different symptoms. One of the worst symptoms will be that your chain will get tight, it will get hot. It'll get so tight that the saw may not even be able to spin it around. And if you do touch it, it's going to be very hot, very tight on the bar as well. It's going to wear out the bar. The bar may get different colors down here because it's been very hot. And the first telltale sign that your bar is not oiling is when you go to fill up the fuel tank and then you check the oil tank and it's still full. If you run across these symptoms, make sure to check your chainsaw to make sure it's oiling properly before you cause more damage to it. So I'm going to get right into the repair. The first thing you want to do is remove the bar and chain. You'll need your scrunch to remove the 2 1/2-inch nuts over here. And actually on this 562xp chainsaw, the nuts stay on to the clutch cover. There's like a clip here. Now I'll just remove the bar and chain. Now on the 562xp, you need to unlatch these clips here. One here, and there's 2 on the other side. And I'll just remove the cover. The next thing you want to do is remove the spark plug. You'll need a 5/8 socket or spark plug socket to do that. Now I'm going to insert this piston stop in the cylinder. So screw it right down to the end. Now before I remove the clutch, I'm going to air blow all the dust here from the chainsaw. It's just better if you clean it first. And make sure to wear safety glasses when you do this. Now the best way to remove the clutch is to have this clutch removal tool from Husqvarna. You can just buy it from your local dealer. If you don't have this tool, you can make your own here by just drilling 3 holes, putting 3 bolts, but you will have to make sure that the holes line up with the holes in the clutch here. So this is a good alternative. I've used this homemade tool that I made here for quite a while before I did buy the actual clutch tool. And sometimes people who don't have either of the tools I showed will use a roll pin punch. They will hook themselves on a strong part of the clutch somewhere and just tap the roll pin punch. I usually try to avoid this method here because there's more chances of breaking parts. So I'm going to use my good clutch tool. I'm going to insert it into the clutch here. And there's usually an arrow on the clutch showing which way to remove the clutch, and usually it's reverse threads, meaning you're going to have to go this way to get it off. Now you'll need your ratchet and a 13mm socket. You want to move the clutch until you can feel that the piston is locked. And this is the most crucial part of the whole repair here because you don't want to cause any damage. And it came off extremely easy today. I'm very surprised. Then you just unscrew it, pull the clutch, and there is a bearing that will come out. And you will have your sprocket. This sprocket here is pretty worn, so I will replace it when I reassemble the chainsaw. So on this chainsaw, the oil pump is located right underneath the worm gear here. Sometimes the worm gear is a problem. Sometimes the notches here get damaged and they won't turn properly. And sometimes the threads inside that turn the actual oil pump will be stripped. In this case here, there's not an issue with this part. It's actually pretty good. Before I reassemble it, I'll clean the notches here. So what I'm going to be doing is replacing the oil pump on this chainsaw today. It's such a problem on these chainsaws that I actually keep a brand new OEM pump in stock. And it's part number 505-1999-06. Before getting the pump off, you have to remove this screw right here. It's a Torx T10. And you'll need to remove this screw here as well. It'll just make it easier to do the whole repair. And now you can remove this shroud. So at this point here, because there's still a lot of dirt here, I'm going to put the worm gear back on. And I'm going to air blow this out very well, just to clean all this out here before I actually remove the pump. Now that it's clean, I'll remove the worm gear. And you'll need a number 4 Allen wrench. And you have to remove this screw here as well. And now the pump will come right off. And it came right out of the oil line right here. What I've done here, instead of air blowing it, is I've decided to clean it in my parts washer. I cleaned all the area around here. You want that super clean. And I cleaned all the other parts that go on there as well. Now at this point here, you can install the oil pump. You want to hold the pump in this position, slide it on the shaft and through the oil line right here. And now tighten up the 2 screws evenly. Now you want them fairly tight. I don't have the torque specs. Use common sense. You don't want to overdo it because you could easily strip the threads. The next part you want to install is the worm gear. That's what drives the pump. And now I'm going to reinstall that shield here. And don't forget the small screw. And now install this plastic piece here. And now install the screw. And I'm going to install the clutch bearing, but first I'm going to put some lithium grease on there. Just pack it right into the rollers. And then just slide it on the shaft. Since the old sprocket's quite worn out and I've got the clutch off, I'm going to install a new one. You just have to slide it on the rim. And by the way, the notches on the clutch drum here are what catch inside the grooves on the worm gear, therefore spinning the oil pump. And now you can just slide it right on. Then install the clutch. And remember, it's reverse thread, so I'm going backwards to actually tighten it up. So just snug it in for now like this with your fingers. I'm going to remove the piston stop here. Now what I'm going to do is pull out the recoil. And I'll explain in a second why I'm doing that. I'm going to reinstall the piston stop here. Now the reason I'm doing that is because when I turn it in reverse like this, it actually brings the recoil back in. And if you don't have the rope pulled out, it's putting all the pressure on the recoil. So by having the rope pulled out, as I'm turning, I can feel the rope go back in until I can feel that the piston is against the piston stop inside the cylinder. Once you know that, let the rope go back in. It just helps to prevent damage to the recoil. And I'm going to put the clutch tool back on the clutch, but I will only tighten it up very slightly. So you don't need to tighten it much, just a little bit. And that's good. And now don't start the saw without the bar and chain on because the clutch could go flying off. The clutch is screwed on there in reverse for a reason. Once you have the bar and chain on and you use the saw, it's actually tightening the clutch on the crankshaft. That's why I didn't tighten it up that much. And now at this point you can remove the piston stop because you will not need it anymore. And I'm also going to install a new spark plug. It's an NGK CMR 6H. And I'm going to replace the air filter as well. And I prefer this type of air filter, and the part number is right here, 5226750-01. And to replace the air filter, just pop the pin here, or the clip, and reinstall the new filter. And I'm also going to install the cover on top here. Just pop these clips in. And I'm going to install the chain. I have sharpened it. It's good to wear gloves when you reinstall your chain because it's very easy to cut yourself. Now before I reinstall the bar, I want to show you something very important. You have to make sure that these small oiler holes right here are clean all the time, because you may have a no oiling issue on your chainsaw, and in fact it might just be that these holes are plugged. You don't want to replace an oil pump and then find out that it was just the holes here that were plugged. And also make sure to keep the groove inside the bar nice and clean all the time. And now reinstall the clutch cover. And now you can see that the chain is way too loose. So I'm just going to turn in that screw while holding the bar up. Tighten up the two nuts evenly. Now check the tension again. It's still a bit loose. So I'm just going to re-loosen the nuts a bit. Hold the bar up again, turn this screw here in just a bit, re-tighten up the nuts. Check the tension again, and when you pull down, it will spring back up on its own, so that's pretty good here. I try not to over tighten up the chains in the wintertime here in Canada because it gets very cold and the chain can contract a little bit from the cold. And now I'm going to put some bar oil in there. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, if you want to avoid a mess, it's good to drain the oil out of the oil tank first. Now the job is complete. All that's left to do is start it up, test it out to make sure it's oiling. One way to know if it's oiling, you will see a thin film of oil after you ran it for a while on the chain. And I'm also going to run it just close to the cardboard here, and you will see a streak of oil if it's oiling properly. So you can see that it's oiling quite well. These are all streaks of oil coming off the bar. And if you look at the chain closely, you can see there is a thin film of oil on it. That's what you want to see. Now, if you flip the chainsaw over, there is an oil adjustment. If you turn it counterclockwise, you will add more oil to the chain. If you turn the screw in, it will send out less oil to the chain. And it's the screw that is actually on the oil pump that you will be turning. If you're actually using a ripping chain on your chainsaw to rip some boards, I recommend that you crank it to the fullest that it will go. And I've put the part numbers to the parts I used in the video today underneath the video. And as you saw, guys, it's not that difficult to replace. Just follow my video, bookmark it in case you ever need to do this. If you do have a Husqvarna 562xp and you use it commercially, you will end up having to replace these parts at some point in the future. Thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure you're following me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and have yourselves a great day.